But first, the thoughts of the one Unionist MP whose support for the Prime Minister is unwavering, the North Down MP, Lady Hermon. What did she make of the result of last night's confidence vote?
A win is a win is a win. And personally speaking, I was hugely relieved that she won by such a margin. If you think back to the fact that she came in as Prime Minister in July of 2016, and think of how many ministers have been let go, have resigned, have reason to vote against the Prime Minister, and then all of the other backbench MPs in the Conservative Party who haven't been promoted, haven't been asked to be a minister. So in a private ballot amongst Tory MPs, it could have been a much heavier defeat. So she did extraordinarily well, and I was hugely relieved for her, hugely relieved.
Members of the ERG, of course, see it very differently. They say she's holed below the waterline. She now does not command the support of a majority of her backbench MPs. I mean, a third of the parliamentary party didn't support her last night. It certainly doesn't strengthen her position, does it?
It doesn't strengthen the position of the ERG. I mean, she is the stronger person coming out of all of this. They've had their chance. They probably called it at the wrong time. It's gone. She is safe for a year. They cannot challenge her within the party for a year. She is safe. She is strengthened as she goes to Brussels to continue the negotiations.
She is likely to come back from her visit to Brussels today disappointed. How is she going to sell a few minor tweaks, reassurances, clarifications to people in the House of Commons behind you who are determined to see a wholesale change to that document and the removal of the backstop?
Well, the EU leaders and the Prime Minister know that the withdrawal agreement, it's signed. It's signed. It's not going to be unsigned.
It could be renegotiated, could it not?
Well, it cannot be renegotiated. It is.
I mean, why can't it be? Why can't they just reopen it, renegotiate, and come up with something that is acceptable to everybody? That's perfectly possible if they want to do it.
Well, of course it's not, because the date of Brexit, the 29th of March 2019, is set in law. We have it on statute. We will be leaving, the UK will be leaving the EU on the 29th of March of next year. Therefore, there is no time to renegotiate an entire agreement. The deal is signed, it cannot be unsigned. However,
time to renegotiate the political declaration, then there's time to renegotiate the withdrawal agreement.
There is going to be negotiation, I think, about a protocol. So the 585 pages of the withdrawal agreement has been signed. It is not going to be unsigned. They've made it quite clear, and Theresa May gets that.
And are you happy with that?
However, well, the Belfast Agreement, I think, personally, that in fact we do not enter into a backstop unless at the end of the transition period we have not had a good trading relationship negotiated between the UK and the EU. So the transition period ends 31st of December 2020. But we only get the transition period if we get the deal. So we must have a deal before the 29th of March 2019. Now, how do we get that deal through the House of Commons? So that deal, the 585 pages which has been signed and sealed, is not going to be reopened. We can agree on that. However, the indications are that there will be, between the 27 EU leaders and Theresa May when she goes to Brussels, there has been speculation overnight and last evening that there can be a protocol to that document that makes it absolutely clear that if, and only if, we ever got into the backstop, that it would definitely come to an end at the demand of the UK. That is what is up for negotiation, and I think that is entirely possible.
Do you feel that perhaps you are more in tune with the people of Northern Ireland who voted to remain in the EU rather than the DUP's position, which of course is to leave?
I certainly do reflect the majority of people and how they voted in the EU referendum. We voted for Remain, and that must not be forgotten.
Do you think that that's understood by MPs and Lords in Parliament and by the media here generally in the UK? Do you think they understand that complexity of Northern Ireland politics?
Well, when there are 10 DUP voices speaking and taking one line, and then there's only myself alone speaking in a completely different angle, but reflecting the majority view of those in Northern Ireland who voted Remain in the EU referendum, then I think slowly but slowly people are beginning to listen in the House of Commons.
Can I just ask you finally if you think there's any crumb of comfort you can give to people watching this who frankly are tearing their hair out? They are despairing of politics in Northern Ireland, which isn't working properly at the moment, and here in Westminster, where it's become a bit of a pantomime. It's become a bit of a circus, let's be absolutely honest, and they cannot see any light at the end of the tunnel. Are you optimistic that there is light at the end of the tunnel?
Strangely enough, I am optimistic. I am optimistic that there is light in the tunnel. The Prime Minister has said repeatedly, we are looking at a very divided country. Let's not pretend otherwise. Brexit has divided the country. She has tried valiantly to bring both sides of the argument together to reunite the country. And I think as we get closer and closer, and we have to vote on this deal, there is no other deal. I think there will be something else negotiated in Brussels to help the DUP, to help her own party, Theresa May's own party, support the deal that she has negotiated, and that we have to vote at some stage in January, before the 21st of January. And when it comes to that key vote, I'd like to think that Labour MPs, Conservative MPs who've had their chance, and their chance was last night in a vote of confidence, they have voted by quite a margin for the Prime Minister to remain as the Prime Minister, to take them through the Brexit negotiations, and indeed the DUP, will at that stage think to themselves what is in the best interests of the country. Because the date of the 29th of March 2019 is fixed in law. It cannot change. We must not, in any circumstances, crash out of the EU without a deal. That would mean chaos. It would mean a hard border in the island of Ireland. And always remember, the Prime Minister was the Home Secretary for 6 years. So above everybody else in the Cabinet, she understands that we cannot have a hard border coming back on the island of Ireland. She is protecting peace across the country. And that is a very strong argument that she has. So actually, I'm optimistic.
I just need to pick you up finally on that. You know that the DUP and a lot of Brexiteers who don't fear a no-deal Brexit will say, frankly, you're talking nonsense, that none of that is true. There will never be a hard border in Ireland. The peace process is not threatened, and you're over-egging the pudding, frankly, for your own political purposes.
That is just so silly. That's such a silly argument, to sweep that aside. I mean, I just asked them, when did they last speak to the Chief Constable of the Police Service of Northern Ireland? I mean, why is it you think that the Police Service of Northern Ireland have withdrawn from sale 3 unused police stations along the border? Why do you think the Chief Constable of the PSNI is trying valiantly to recruit more members into the police service? He is making preparations for either a deal or no deal. But if there is no deal, there will be a hard border. And that is not something that I am going to countenance, nor is the Prime Minister going to accept that. It's not over-egging the pudding, it's the reality of the situation. We have to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland.